right, testing one, two, three. Welcome to the Life Given podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Lopez. Today, I do need to apologize for the audio and video, but especially to the audio listener, I don't have my mic in front of me today, and the reason is that is because I got a new toy, and I am recording on this new computer that Ruth and I picked up to replace my old dinosaur. So it's a new Mac, and so I can't use my USB with the mic to plug right into it. So the show must go on, and I'm excited to use this. It'll enable me to edit faster, do more writing, and so on and so forth. I do apologize just here at the outset. But today really is going to be a jam-packed show. There have been a lot of things that have happened this week that have come to the surface, and there's some things that I feel like need to be corrected, that need to be highlighted, and honestly, that we just need to kind of wrap our minds around just a lot of things that have come out. And I would like to just kind of tie it all up with this prompt or this encouragement, and that's just do your own research. The more and more I delve into current events and current issues, the more and more I realize just how much people have their own agenda, how much people may not actually know, even though they lead you to believe, thinking that they know more. Now, hopefully you've never encountered that on this podcast, but you probably have. In all honesty, there have probably been episodes where I have tried to sound more confident than I probably had the right to be. Now, I would argue that maybe that's just being a podcast host, but I just want to point some of those things out this episode as we wrap up our week. And so we're going to be talking about the 6% number that has been thrown around so much, coming out from the CDC. We're going to talk about Deon Kay, who was an African American who was shot by police in DC just a couple of days ago. We're going to discuss this new bill that just passed in California. And that was approved by the Senate, and a lot of people are up in arms over it. Some may say they have a right to be. And then finally, I want to discuss the rising numbers of, how should we put it, COVID-19 collateral damage. Not responsible. COVID-19 was not responsible for this directly, but our treatment of COVID-19 drove these numbers through the roof, and that was covered actually by Sam Nias over at the Life Given News, and he had a great article covering the survey that the CDC conducted. Anyway, a lot to get to, and I don't want to sit here boring you for 45 minutes, so let's jump into it and actually discuss and look at some of the facts about these things, because you probably have heard a lot about these various subjects, and I want to just actually work through some of them and maybe hopefully clear out some of the brush, clear away some of the brush, and clear away some of the weeds. So let's start with Deon Kay. Okay, this African American in DC, he was shot and died from this, so fatally shot by this officer in DC. Now, this only happened a couple days ago. And of course, when that hits the headlines, you see the first wave of news covering, once again, black man shot by white cop, which is just so minimizing and just so narrowly focused that it surprises me that people are still reading those news sites with any belief in their integrity. But Deon Kay, right? So the first wave came out, and it was these headlines that heightened protests in DC and our capital. But then there was a second wave that just came out in the last 8 to 9 hours, and that was the second wave of people after they watched the video footage released by DC police. And so the DC Police Department came out and released body cam footage. So they have been having their officers, all of their officers have been employing the use of body cameras. And so they had footage of this. And I think this clears the air significantly. Now, we don't know all of the surrounding facts. And I'm not going to come out and say that this completely clears the air, that I have no questions after this. But I think that this answers a lot of the big questions, because the police department issued a statement that this man, Deon Kay, had a weapon, and he brandished it at the officer, so the officer fired. So we're going to watch the footage, and we'll review some of their statements that the DC Police Department released. So we'll jump right into that. Okay, so here we are with the one of the official statements released by the police department in DC, and it gives a rundown of what happened in this situation. So on Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, at approximately 3:49 p.m., uniformed MPD officers were in the area of the 200 block of Orange Street Southeast to investigate a man with a gun. Now, I'm going to stop here and just mention that I've heard a couple reports and a couple of different people say that they had been tipped off saying that there were two men with weapons. And so they were here to investigate it. So I'm assuming if they are there investigating something, that they have, excuse me, they have a tip off of some kind. So upon arrival, we're back to the statement now. The officers approached individuals in a parked vehicle. Mr. Deon Kay exited the vehicle and began to run on foot. Officers pursued Mr. Kay on foot. An officer observed Mr. Kay brandish a firearm, and subsequently the officer discharged his service weapon once, striking Mr. Kay in the chest. Now, they go on to mention, I believe, in this that they do try to rush him to the hospital, but he unfortunately does not make it. So we are going to start here. Fair warning, as you have just read and listened, there is a shooting. So do be aware of that.
The chest.
So the officer's pulling up right now. I think there's two there in the vehicle. And we'll slow down here in a second. But Deon Kay, who's the suspect now on the ground, does not have a weapon in his hand. But that was because he ended up throwing it. So they go down and search for him. And they spend, the footage goes on, him just searching throughout this park, this green area, looking for the for the weapon that Deon had. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here. They did a bit of work to put it in slow motion and then show that
Do we think he has a gun?
That there was actually a weapon in his hand.
I don't know. It's a firearm. I'm involved.
So right here, he has a firearm right there in his hand. Now, it's very clear, which, the body cam footage hasn't been clear up to this point. So I guess when you slow it down, you might have that kind of definition. But at least according to this video right here, there is a firearm in his hand and he chucks it. But of course, as an officer of the law, you don't know if he's about to throw it or if he's raising it chest level to fire it at you. And so there you have it. That's really the only thing that I want to examine, and I would love to get your feedback on it, because to me, I feel like that there is probable cause enough there to warrant the officer to fire, especially when your assailant has a weapon, he's drawing it. That's just what happened. Okay, that's actual footage of what happened. Take of it make of it what you will. But the narrative that has been pushed for months now, surrounding Black Lives Matter, and surrounding the boys in blue, it's been very tense. And so hopefully we can inject some reason. And the more and more I've studied, and I think the narrative is starting to turn, the tide is starting to turn, as reason, I think is starting to prevail. And maybe that's just the foolish optimist within me. So let's talk about briefly, let's discuss foolish optimism a little bit here with the 6% stat that you've probably heard issued by the CDC, that came out and updated their website about a week and a half ago. And they mentioned that only 6% of the recorded COVID-19 fatalities were strictly coronavirus induced or affected. The rest of them, the other 94%, had a comorbidity. So there is an underlying health condition. And I saw this throughout my feed, and this is purely anecdotal, but I think that you could extrapolate this to maybe a more universal observation. But a lot of my conservative friends started sharing that. Like, see, here's once again more information showing and pointing to the fact that COVID-19 is not as bad as we were told and as we thought. And then about 5 hours later, you see this next wave, this next narrative coming out, and like why you shouldn't believe that COVID-19 isn't something to be worried about or whatever. And it just strikes me as funny because like there's knee-jerk reactions on both sides of the aisle, both sides of whatever spectrum. People are desperately wanting this to be over, right? They want this pandemic to be over, and I would fall closer to that camp than saying that the 6% is, basically just bull jive. I think that really just general comments on that is that this 6% thing doesn't surprise me. We've talked about how that the coronavirus targets people over the age of 70 and people with underlying health conditions. This stat just goes to bolster that idea, that claim. So I don't think that this should be an aha gotcha moment, but rather oh, that makes sense. If we're thinking about this like reasonable, rational Christians and human beings, this isn't a surprising statistic, because this is what, as we've been able to study this novel virus more and more, we're starting to see that it follows the laws of epidemiology more and more. So really, and this is the foolish optimist within me. And I've started seeing more and more headlines, more and more articles coming out saying that, lockdowns were crazy. We shouldn't have done that. Or the coronavirus, we need to start opening back up. We need to start opening the economy back up. We need to get our children back out to socializing, because we're taking away very important aspects to their informative years, right? And so I think that even though the time between us and the election is only about 60 days now, I really do think that America is starting to throw off I don't know how to describe it. I mean, the psychosis, honestly, that we have been enduring. And this brings in this article that Sam, a contributor over at the Life Given News, and I'll link to his article below. But he did a post recently, just yesterday, actually, or today. He just posted it today, talking about the CDC study that came out on August 14th, with a web-based survey that they conducted through June 24th and the 30th. And they found that there was a rise in substance use and suicidal thoughts. And so the one that I really want to hone in on here is between the ages of 18 and 24. There's a 25% increase. And that those are numbers that many people threw out there months ago. And I think that it's been too easy to just write it off. Like this is to save. If it's just to save one life, we need to go into lockdowns. If it's to save one grandparent, we need to go into lockdowns. And the consequences be damned. The other lives that we need to evaluate, the economy that was an all-time high in the last 50 years, all of that be screwed. We're going into lockdowns. And now hindsight really is 2020, even though we have not had any kind of vision, any kind of foresight in the year of 2020. But we're starting to see that, that was kind of brash. It was kind of irrational to think that this would work like we thought it would work. So I would go find that. I found that article very informative. And there are actually a lot of more articles that are going to be rolling out in this month alone. And you guys should really tune in to Life Giving News. I'm really excited for the team we've got over there. It's just getting better and better by the day, honestly. So if you're looking for more news sites, a news site that you can trust, I'm going to get the self-plug out of the way here. I would go over and use the Life Giving News. I've started using it more now that other people are writing on it than just myself. And I'm finding it incredibly useful. And the articles are very short and very concise. So great article over there by Sam. The last thing that I want to get to here, babe, what was the last thing I wanted to get to here?
You were going to talk about the bill.
Oh yes, the bill. Thank you. SB-145, I believe. I have it here. Anyway, Ruth has been sitting in the room this entire time. And she truly is my guiding light. Also another plug, Ruth and I dropped a podcast together, a podcast episode over on, really, you can find it wherever this one's going to be uploading, the Podwalk episode 2. And we talked about a previous podcasting venture that the two of us struck out on, and we struck out. But it was a very enjoyable experience. But you should go listen and tune into that episode. What are you giving me that look? Well,
we got a home run.
Well, we got a home run because we got married, but we struck out because we failed at the pod. Oh no, the actual podcast that we tried to launch.
I actually was not listening to you.
Anyway, that's staying in, just an FYI.
No.
So, yes, the bill. What is going on with this California bill that, if honestly, it's just been today, but a lot of my favorite conservative podcasters that I listen to, and listen to them very regularly, came out and was bashing this bill as pedophile-friendly law or pederasty-friendly law. And because it basically, the goal of this bill passed by California legislature in the Senate now, in that state, basically is trying to do is basically to try to get to get rid of the discrimination that this law was inferring on the LGBTQ community. So basically, there is this rule in California that if someone who had sex with a minor, they would be convicted, or if they were within this 10-year, if they were not more than 10 years older than the minor, they wouldn't automatically be written they wouldn't automatically be registered as a sex offender. They could actually go to court. And this is basically for the 19, 17-year-old boyfriend, girlfriend, to have some protection under the law. But for someone who committed sodomy with a minor, regardless of the age gap, would automatically be a sexual a sex offender under the law without even going to court. So basically, what this bill was being passed was to make all of that equal. So whatever heinous acts were committed, they still have the opportunity to go to court and be tried there. And really, we're going to wrap up this week right now with this, and that's just, don't be afraid to do your own digging on a subject, even if you might be worried that it might not fit with your worldview, or it might make you have to ask more questions or do more research. That's awesome. We need more truth seekers, and we're not tied down to a political party. So if you're looking for a site that's trying to help people stay informed, do start looking into the Life Given News. I'm really excited with the team of people we have over there, very capable, intelligent, smart people that I'm working with. I'm very excited to be on this project over there with them. And the goal is to create a space that will help you become informed, and hopefully answer questions in an unconfusing way. That's not the best way of putting it, but hey, it's been a long week. So I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope that you guys have been enjoying the podcast. Do subscribe and like on whatever platform. If you enjoy this enough to share it with a friend, share it with a friend. It really helps the show. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram @_TLG podcast_, on Parler @TLG podcast, on Facebook at The Life Given News, or you can email me at thelifegivenandreceived@gmail.com. And you can find this podcast on probably 8 or 9 different platforms: YouTube, Facebook Watch, Podchaser, Spotify, Google Podcasts, The Life Given News websites, and a couple others. As always, remember that the life that you've been given and the life that we have received includes every area of life. Current events are no exception. God bless.